Yeah, hello, this is Dave from cheapbooks.com playing World of Tanks. This video is going to be an addendum to my crew training video. I have a large number of new tips. It's going to be 15 or 20 new tips about how to improve crew training in terms of skills and perks on World of Tanks. So I'm just going to get out on the list. If you haven't seen the first video, you should watch it. It's very, very thorough and extensive. Okay, now, first of all, we're going to talk about the firefighting crew skill. So, you probably are a game player. You know that the tank catches on fire, and then there's a firefighting crew skill. And what this does is it reduces the amount of damage that you get per turn when you're on fire. So, when you're on fire, let's say it does 100 damage per second. This will reduce that number. It will continue on the number of seconds that you're on fire, etc. The driver, however, has a perk called preventative maintenance. And what this does is it reduces the chance that your tank catches fire. With my Chinese tanks, or with any tank that has an engine in the front or otherwise catches on fire easily, you have to have things like the preventative maintenance. Now, reducing the chance that you catch fire is better than the skill to put out the fire. So, if you're like me, I have BIA for all of my crew members, and then I have the concealment or camouflage, and then I'll do repairs for everybody, and then I'll do firefighting for everybody. You're probably adding firefighting as a skill to everybody at the same time. But what you should do is make an exception for the driver. So you'll do the firefighting skill for everybody else, but for the driver, you put the preventative maintenance perk for the engine in lieu of the firefighting skill, which is going to reduce the chance that you catch on fire anyway. And then you add the firefighting skill after the preventative maintenance. So that's one tip that should help you improve firefighting. Now, the other issue that I had an issue with my Tiger P. And the problem is that he doesn't have good crew skills. He doesn't have Sixth Sense. So you'll notice that if you look at my crew skills, I have BIA for everything, and then everyone else is at 56% on the second skill. Now, I want to get the Sixth Sense for the commander as quickly as possible, and I'm going to show you how I am doing it. You send everybody to the barracks, and I've got two other heavy tanks, the VK and the Tiger II, so I'm also going to send them to the barracks. And I'm going to use a premium tank with a little trick that's going to level up my commander about twice as fast. So I'm going to take the Tiger 131, for example, and I'm going to put the Tiger P commander. And for the gunner, I'm not going to use the Tiger P. I'm going to use the VK. For the driver, I'm going to use the VK driver. For the radio operator, I'm going to use the VK radio operator. And for the loader, I am going to also use the VK loader. Now, I hope you can zoom in on this. But what you're going to notice is I have accelerated crew training turned on. And I have my Tiger P commander. And because I have the accelerated crew training, and because the Tiger P commander is the least skilled, and everyone else is from the VK and not my Tiger P, my commander is going to learn his skill twice as fast every game. So I'm going to keep on doing this until he gets up to 100% and until he gets Sixth Sense. And then when I do that, I'm not going to do it anymore. So basically what I'm doing is I'm using accelerated crew training, but I'm forcing it to be the commander for every game until I decide to stop doing it. And you can do it for any crew member. And the trick, like I said, is very simple. You take the crew member that you want to raise, and you put him in the premium tank, and all the other crew members you pull from other tanks that are of the same class but who have higher skills, and you can target the accelerated crew training towards one individual crew member, and it's going to level up approximately twice as fast. Okay, another tip: when you're playing the game, any crew member that dies during the game doesn't get any crew experience. And you'll notice that if you look at your crew and you play a certain number of games, they level up at different amounts. And the reason why is because sometimes a crew member dies and he doesn't get his experience, so he's under everyone else. So what happens is when you're playing in the game, there's people who, they goof around at the end of the game, they decide to jump off a cliff, or they have an injured crew member but they don't use the first aid kit to repair it. So what happens is those crew members don't level up. If you're playing a game and you goof around and you say, "Oh, the game's over, I'm going to drown myself." Well, guess what? All your crew members are going to get 0 experience for that game. So what you want to do is make sure that your crew survives at the end of every game, and second of all, use your first aid kits to repair any injured crew members at the end of the game. If it's your radio guy, I never use a first aid kit on the radio guy because I'm like, who cares if the radio guy is dead? But if I use my first aid kit, I can bring him back to life. He'll get his crew experience. Of course, there's a cost. However, if it's the second time you're using your first aid kit, you don't have to pay an additional cost. So that's a little tip. You want to make sure that your crew members survive in order to level up. And remember, even though the radio guy is not that important, he might be a future commander for another tank. Okay, one thing that I do on a regular basis is I take all of my crew members and I put all of them in the barracks. I have enough barracks now to hold everybody. And then I make a chart on a piece of paper of all of my tanks and all the crew members on a nation-by-nation basis. I put the number of skills that they have, the percent that they're on, and I put which crew members are unused and which ones are specialty, meaning that I need them to fill like a premium tank, for example. So I'm going to tell you what I did with Germany. Let's see if I can find Germany. Germany, I didn't make any changes, which is unusual. Okay, so let's use the example of the UK. On the UK, on my tank destroyer, the AT-15, I had a crew member who was a loader who had less skill than basically everybody else in the game that was active on a tank. And I found a crew member that was inactive who was not on a tank that I believe was a female crew member, which had a bonus to it, and I swapped her in for my tank destroyer, and I put that tank destroyer, who was 3 skills with the 3rd skill at 95%, and I made him inactive. By using this chart, I found a inactive 0 skill BIA player from when I purchased a Thunderbolt. He was a radio operator, and I made him the gunner on my light tank, and I took another inactive player and I made him the driver on my tank destroyer, and I took the driver from the tank destroyer and I moved him to be the loader on my SPG. So what I do is I highlight the weakest guys that are on a tank, and I look in the barracks to see who's available, if there's someone who's a better replacement or a 0 skill BIA or a female crew member to replace it with. The other thing that I do is I look for my best performing crew members. For example, on my Russian medium tanks, I'm going to find the medium tanks, I can show you what I'm talking about. I have some great crew members on a particular Russian medium tank, the A-44. This tank has some of the best crew members in the game. They are going to have 5 skills. Here's one, for example. This crew member has 5 skills, and what I do is I take them and I put them on other tanks that I like to play more often. I don't like the Russian tech tree that often, so it's kind of an exception, which is why he ended up having this great skill. But that's one of the things that I do. Let's go back to my chart here. I also rename my crew members that have the zero skill BIA so that they all have the same last name. For Russia, they're all Antonov. For the UK, I think they're all Abbott. And for the US, they might also be Abbott. So this way I know which ones are the zero skill BIA. It took a long time to figure out which ones they are, and that's how I keep track of them, based on them all having the same last name. The other thing that I learned is that the commander has a crew skill called Mentor, which I'm sure you're familiar with. And it says here that Mentor, where is it? Why isn't it here? Oh, okay, it's already on the guy. It says here that Mentor gives you a 10% bonus to all the other crew members, but it's actually not true. It's only, I believe it's a 10% bonus if your commander is trained at 100%. So if your commander, if you have vents and you have the food consumables and you have other bonuses that relate to improving the crew skills of the commander, then you actually get more than 10% using the Mentor crew skill. And if you're using premium tanks, I think that there's hidden bonuses so that it's actually, you can get 12%, 13%, etc. or more from having Mentor. So it's not really 10%. In practice, you're actually going to get more than 10%. Okay, the reason why I used to use Mentor, I don't use it anymore, but I used to because you get 10% every game no matter what. But something like firefighting, you might go the whole game and never use it. So why have perks that you might not ever use? Mentor has one of the best benefits. It's hard to find a perk that gives you 10% every game no matter what. Okay, now also there is, for the driver, there is clutch braking and off-road driving. And in some cases, like a turretless TD, you're going to want to use the clutch braking in order to spin the tank around. But the off-road driving, I believe it also helps turn the tank around, your traverse speed. And therefore, when you have a turretless TD, you could use the clutch braking or you could use the off-road driving. Both of them are going to help your tank spin around, but the difference is the off-road driving is going to help you drive faster on unpaved surfaces. So it has two abilities, while clutch braking only has one. So for some, in most turretless TDs, it makes sense to put the clutch braking, but you can put off-road driving also and get the benefit for for the actual unpaved surfaces and for the traverse speed, while clutch braking only does the traverse speed. So that's why I usually use off-road driving first as opposed to clutch braking, with few exceptions. The very slow SPGs and the very slow tank destroyers like the Jagdtiger that take a long time to spin around, I'll put the clutch braking first. Okay, another thing is, when you have loaders, some tanks will have two loaders. I'm going to find a tank that has two loaders, perhaps a KV5. And when you have two loaders, the perks, you don't want two of the same perk on two different loaders. So, for example, safe stowage. If you have safe stowage on both loaders, only one of them gets used. And there's some tanks that have two gunners, and there's actually a tank that has two radio operators. So when you have a tank that has two loaders, and I have two heavy tanks, I have three loaders to pick from, because the IS-4 and the IS-7, one has one loader, the other one has two. So I can pick from three different loaders on my KV-5, which only needs two loaders. Of those three, two of them have safe stowage and one of them has adrenaline rush. And what I'll do is I'll make sure that I'll pick one that has safe stowage and one that has adrenaline rush, which means that they're either both going to come from the same tank, or one is going to come from one tank and one's going to come from the other tank. And the same is true for the IS-7. The IS-7 has two loaders, so one of them is going to have safe stowage and the other one is going to have adrenaline rush, but they're never going to have both, because you don't get the benefit for both of them. Okay, another tip is, you can win female crew members by doing the campaign missions. And actually, I was able to win them on my Swedish tanks because they did a special month-long thing where you could win female crew members. And the other thing you want to get is a 0% BIA. The last time I got them was when I bought the Thunderbolt. You want to get as many of these crew members as possible. Some of them come with 2 free skills, or maybe even more. And I've got like 40 or 50 crew members. They level up so much faster. I've got so many 5-skill crew members, almost all of them were the 0% BIA. Get as many as you can. If you don't want to get the Stug 4 and the other free premium tanks, do it for the free crew members. It's totally worth it. Okay, the other thing that I do is when I have to pick a premium tank, or any tank that has a lot of crew members, I want my radio operator to have the least number of crew skills. So you'll notice here I have a loader that has 5 skills at 55%, and he's better than my commander. What I'll do is when there's a discount, I'll switch the loader for the commander and put the commander for the loader. So because the commander has a more diverse set of skills and perks, and that's why I do that. The other thing that I do is when I do my premium tanks, I have 2 heavy tanks to pick from. I pick the crew member that has the lowest percentage, the lowest number of skills. And the reason why I do that is because they level up more. You get more of a benefit. Let me give you an example. If you have 1 skill, you level up faster per game as compared to if you have 5 skills. So if you have 1 skill at 0% versus 5 skills at 0%, the 1 skill at 0% is going to level up to a higher percentage in 1 game. So to get the greater benefit, I put my lower skilled crew members in all of my premium tanks. They're leveling up faster. For example, you can go from 0 to 50 in 1 game on the first skill, but on the 5th skill, it might go from 0 to 1 in 1 game. And when you're working on anything, it's way better to do it that way. So for your premium tanks, put in your lowest skilled crew members, unless you have an exception. For example, you might have a crew member that you really love, that you want to get him as high as possible. Like, for example, if someone's over 90%, then maybe I'll pick him over someone that's less than 90%, regardless of how many skills they have. And the reason why is because you want to get them to the 0% as quickly as possible. It's very difficult to get from 99 to 0, but once you get to 0, it's very easy to get from 0 to 1 or 0 to 10 or 0 to 20 or 0 to 50. They level up very quickly. So to get it to roll over, I'll put in the 97 and the 98 and the 99 percenters above the ones that are at 50 or 55 or 60 or whatever. Okay, so that's a little addendum, some new things that I've learned about crew skills. And like I said, if you've watched my other video about crew training, I literally have like 100 tips every way you can possibly train up your crew skills. And I did a lot of research to show the fastest way to do it. If you have any questions or comments, please post below.